this year, the whole Christmas story and everything that we've done to kind of highlight that in Christmas prime time, is there one touch point? Is there one place where this year Christmas has touched your life?
Yeah, I do think it's building around the centrality of Christ in my life. Putting Jesus at the center. That's a song that we sang this season really intentionally, right? Because the idea behind, the phrase that we coined prime time, I mean, if we look at that, a lot of this came about because we had to be flexible and we wanted to listen for what God was doing in the season. Not only in terms of like our service and the time and the logistic stuff, but what God was really doing in our life and I think in our world, like the people whose lives that we engage in. And really making sure that our focus is centrally on what Jesus is doing and what he's here in our life doing, I think was the big focus throughout the season for me. And I think when we'd look at these different characters week to week and we would, walk through the story, over and over throughout this whole, month, I'm just so inspired by the people in this story that are looking and waiting. And I really do identify with the people that are watching for what God's doing right now. There's so little clarity about this in our world. And I think if we're really honest, like if I'm really honest, I can say sometimes it's kind of hard to see what God's doing in the world. And I don't know, to just be watchful, flexible, and let God really lead, that's something I need to get reminded of like every day. And this season, the idea of a prime time or, kind of Jesus right at the center and then things start falling into place. I mean, I saw that in some of the smallest ways, whether it was like at home or like at work or with family. It was like when I'm focused on the right things and where God has me planted, things start to just fall into place. And that really takes a lot of the pressure off, I think, of trying to kind of craft the perfect holiday season and, just manage and organize everything, which I think is really easy to take all that pressure right on ourselves and feel like if we didn't have everything perfect, like we failed in some way. I think a lot of people struggle, right? Because then they feel like a failure, and then there's this anxiety that builds, and it plays into fear, and it's just a really kind of downward spiral once you get there. But there's something about being able to step back, listen for God's voice, try and see what God is doing, and follow into that, and knowing that everything will kind of fall into place there.
I think my thoughts are very similar because you're talking about this being such a strange time and what's really going on and what's really happening. In any age, in any time, there are strange, crazy things going on, But one of the things that has been striking me right now is how unwise we are at this particular time. The wise men, they just stand out because they knew that the thing that they wanted to catch was when the God of the universe sent a new king. They were watching and they were looking for that. And we call them wise men. And today I think we have so many people around us that are telling us what to do. This is what you should do. This is the right thing to do, the wisdom, etc. And so much of that is man's word. And I really feel like this is a time, if we're going to understand what's forward and what God's calling us to, I think we're going to need this divine wisdom. That wisdom that comes from hearts that are really searching for what God is doing in those moments in that kind of direction. And I think that's one of the challenges that we have as a Christian community and as a church, for all of us to be encouraging each other with the Word of God and letting His wisdom be touching us, because the church is the place where wisdom flows. It's a source of wisdom, which is from God, and I really would like to see a revival across all churches and all denominations, because our world is struggling with darkness and a lack of wisdom, and
and having the awareness that Jesus is right here, right now, in the middle of what's going on. I think it's something that we do need to get reminded of frequently. So often people think like they have to go do something, right? Like I got to go find this thing, right, to be more spiritual, or like, you know, to get my life right. And it's always this external location, right? Like I've got to go toward this. I got to search it out. I got to figure it out. Like I got to get just the right Google search, right? Like, oh, but this one guy I read, he had a video and he was telling this is the real secret truth, right? Yeah, I mean, I feel like we're kind of, there's like a cultural move where we're trying to get out to try and go find those things. And the reality is what's going to really make us followers of Jesus in our world today, in the current context, with all the craziness and the madness, is knowing that Jesus is right here. And most of our job is learning how to filter out the noise and kind of just say no to a lot of those things that tend to distract us and to get us unfocused. That, you know, being unwise, as you were saying.
So, you know, we've talked about a lot of stuff with the Christmas story, and we've kind of sort of become vulnerable and let everybody know what we know about the Christmas story. So maybe today this discussion ought to be sort of like a baseline. What if next year after Christmas we sit down and do this again, and the theme will be, what new did I learn this year about Christmas? And to sort of talk about how we elevate the baseline. That might be more challenging for us, huh?
Yeah.
We hope all of you have enjoyed the Christmas season, especially the prime time theme, and just the words, I hope, that God's spoken to your heart in this season have enriched you and really enriched our entire community of faith in our relationships and our families. So,
and I would say, you know, we have this up here, Christmas reflections. You know, the encouragement for you to really reflect on what the season has really done in your own life. You know, so much of what happens when we preach or when we talk about the Bible, I mean, it's about us trying to reflect on our own life and trying to kind of figure out our own world. But I think the invitation today is for us to think back on this season and see where God was moving throughout all of it. And I know, I mean, I've had a lot of people actually come up to me and tell me about some of those special moments, you know. I just love how Christmas is just full of those, and that Christmas season. There were some really special things that happened in our church and with our people this year. And they're worth telling. So, I mean, we've talked about that. Go tell it, right?
People must know.
And the people must know.
People must know.
So we have to tell them. But right, thinking about Christmas, right, there's a beauty in the reflection to say, like, you know, where was God really moving throughout this season? And I think when you think about those moments, right, in your own story, there is something really special. And I think you will find yourself in that moment like Mary did, trying to, you know, ponder and treasure those moments, because it is special.